Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Woolman. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Chairs. My name is Fernando Arencibia Jr., and with me, as always, is the Miss Positivity herself, Jennifer Woolman. Jennifer, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
How are you, Jennifer? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
That's wonderful.
I'm
so
always
happy
great.
to hear that.
I live in Miami. I get to work with you.
Oh my God, that's awesome. In that order.
In that order, we've got Jessica sitting here with a big old smile on her face.
I know. I love it.
We've got our editor listening.
Ooh, positivity all around. I told you guys. Well, today we're going to do one of our in-series podcasts, which is a kindergarten series. It's something that we really love. I always enjoy the fact that oftentimes you will bring me a book that I have never heard of, that I have never read, and I'm dying to find out what is it that we're going to discuss today. And if you would introduce to the audience, what is the name of the book?
Sure. The name of the book is called Deer Street, and it's written by Lindsay Ziervogel and illustrated by Carolyn von Mueller.
Very nice. All right, guys, that's it. That's the end of the show. We just wanted to bring you the title of the book.
I love this book, and this is so funny because you just said I miss positivity, but I love this book because it's about loving and appreciating where you live, work, or play in spite of what can be considered by other people who live in your same area as negatives. It's also a book about mindset, which you and I discuss a lot on this podcast because mindset is so important in commercial real estate and in life in general, but especially in commercial real estate. And this book starts with Alice, and the first sentence is a picture of Alice, and it says, "Alice loves her street. Period, the end." And then it goes on to tell about the neighbor who grumbles about the potholes, and another neighbor grumbles about the park in the neighborhood. Construction, the trees are shedding their leaves, which reminds me of Carlos, who complains about the oak trees in our backyard every time they shed into our pool, right? They complain about the snow. They complain about all sorts of stuff. And what Alice does is she empathizes with each of these issues. So she's like, poor street, poor tree, which I found super interesting that she empathizes with kind of inanimate objects and ideas, but she feels for them and wants to highlight what she loves. So she writes these little love letters, what she loves about the street, what she loves about the park, and she leaves these in different areas for random people to find. So I love that because she's not only emphasizing to herself, like, okay, these people might complain about my street, but this is what I love about it, but then she leaves it to share with others.
You know, one of the things I really love about children's books, like if you read, children's books, they leave so much to the imagination. There's really not a lot of writing. There's really not, so, there's a theme and they're all thematic, but the reality is that it just leaves a lot of room for kids and for the imagination of people of all ages. And so you get to add your own perspective as to what it is that you are extracting from it. And, we were joking around because in every section of the book, there's an adult that is basically saying, grumble, grumble. construction or grumble, I gotta, shove the snow, and grumble, I gotta rake the leaves, or grumble, I gotta deal with the potholes on the construction and too many people and it's too hot and all those things. And
you just described Miami, which is bingo why I picked this book. It's the perfect book for the Miami at this point in time.
I think it is, except for leaves turning red. We don't get a lot of that.
Leaves turning red and snow, but instead we've got, climate, heat and humidity, and we've got affordability issues, and we definitely have traffic, construction, and potholes. So we don't have the four seasons, but we've got our own grumbles.
But we also have amazing weather the beaches and the people, and and so there were a couple of things that I found really interesting. The book, to me, is about perspective, and it's about how you see things. And there are people that will always just gravitate to the negative and see the negative. And there are people that are going to really accentuate the positives. And so to your point about mindset, that was a big part of it. And I think that is, I find it really interesting how when bringing it back to our job and commercial real estate, and sometimes we're breaking down a deal with an agent who's going through an issue, and I find it interesting how some people are going to immediately just kind of focus on the problem and stick with that, and then there are people that are immediately going to look at, well, here are the positives. Everybody wants to make it work. Everybody wants to figure it out, but we have this obstacle. We got to figure out how to overcome it. What would you suggest? How do we do it? And I think mindset is incredibly powerful. And I think that's kind of where it's accentuating. I found this interesting about this little girl that is writing letters to the street, writing letters to the park, writing letters, and then leaving it in the bench for other people to read and for other people to pick up. I also found that there's a part of that, which is that, we are so busy in our day-to-day life that we often don't pay attention to our surroundings. We don't pay attention to, it's a beautiful day when we're driving or rushing from one area to another to show a property or to, get to an appointment. From the perspective of the child that is, in this story, not only is she paying attention to those things, but she also is, putting it down on paper and sharing it with others so that she would share that perspective. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, and to me, what that told me is what we always talk about, that commercial real estate is a relationship business, right? Because she's building connections with people in her neighborhood, in her community, and describing spaces that they all share in her perspective. So I love that because, we strive on strong relationships, right? So I also thought that, okay, like when she says she loves her street, okay, there are potholes, but she describes the building and the landscaping, and that made me think, okay, as commercial real estate brokers or commercial real estate developers, and you and I talk about this all the time, we really need to think of the individual assets not as being individual assets, but as being a part of a much bigger whole in the community. What value does that asset provide? What value does the quality or the maintenance or the upkeep or the tenants that I put into that retail space provide to that community? So that's kind of how I saw this book as a real estate book, and I think it can be applied to, again, the user experience. Okay, her street had potholes. Well, great. Fix the potholes and imagine how much better that street and those buildings are going to look, right? So there were a lot of leaves, and it was a hassle for the owners in front to clean the leaves. Well, maybe that's something that could be a community activity, right? Yeah. So I just thought that there was all sorts of positive messaging that can be applied.
No, I also love that the little girl is a positive in every aspect of the book. And, while everybody around her is kind of grumbling, she is, in a constant state of positivity, and, she's looking at all the pluses and not the negatives. And it reminded me also, and we've gotten to experience through other people's eyes, like people say, you never forget your first. There's something really exciting about your first commercial deal, and you see the complexities of it. But as you're traveling through it, you don't know the severity of the obstacles that come up, right? All you're looking for is, okay, so what's the next thing? What do we do now? How do we fix it? And I found that the little girl, she's just focusing on the positive. So, you don't know what you don't know is a powerful state to be in.
Right, but then she gets
Correct.
gets stuck one day
That's
in
right.
something she hadn't planned for. She gets stuck in the rain.
That's right.
She's unprepared. She's wet. She's miserable. She's
Right.
cold, and so then she goes grumble, right?
Right.
So, and to your point about the real estate transaction, or I remember thinking when I first got into real estate investing, like,
Right.
God, all these people buy these properties and everything always goes great. Well, as you start speaking to all these investors, they say, no deal ever goes 100% great. Like after we closed, the roof fell in, or this happened, or all my tenants left, or whatever it was. So I loved that she grumbles because something happens that she didn't expect and hadn't planned for. And then that kind of downer period that she's in goes into the next day because she tries to turn it around. She says, okay, so it rained. I'm home and I'm dry now. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go save all the sidewalk worms. And so she's going to go out to save the sidewalk worms. But then she realizes when she gets outside, well, the puddles are gone. There are no more worms, right? And she comes across a letter in the park that somebody had written and left about the crocuses and how the rain brought the blooms out and everything else. So again, it feeds into, we spoke with John Crossman in the last episode, and he talked about how this industry is such a sharing and giving industry, right? That even though, a lot of us compete on deals or projects or whatever, that we share a lot of information. And I feel like we share good deeds and good ideas moving forward. And in this case, Alice's good deed of sharing what she loved about the industry actually came back to her when somebody else picked up her.
Yeah, and that's what I thought of too. I thought, sometimes this could be a very lonely, endeavor, especially when you get in your own head and you're just dealing with complicated transactions, complicated people, all that stuff. Things are not moving as fast as you wanted it to do. Things that you were expecting to happen didn't happen. And just like in the story, what gets her out of that grumble, state, is to hear somebody else's perspective about how they're seeing the positive in things. That oftentimes it is our connectivity within the industry. I feel like we're in an industry where networking is so important beyond the deal making and the connectivity of, putting two people together that can probably put a deal together. I think there's also a sense of community that you develop. And so what gets you out of those doldrums is going out there and being with people and asking people, how are you seeing the market? How are things moving? Some of that is commensurating over, we see it the same way. We're going through this, the rough patch or whatever it may be at the time. And then part of it is also seeing, there's usually someone who's going to point out the positive and see where the opportunities are, because all obstacles are nothing but, a presentation of an opportunity, and you just have to go through it. But, I do like that component of the book, and the fact that, she does become like every other adult. She starts grumbling and then she quickly snaps out of it when she reads that letter. So there's just a lot to infer from the story.
Well, and her letters, make people appreciate the neighborhood and appreciate where they're living. And I think, we often are creating spaces that people want to go to, right? We always say you want to make the space a reason for people to go, a reason for people to stay. And I think that definitely applies in terms of how real estate is designed and how it's maintained. We have this office for lease that's up in Fort Lauderdale, and it's not your typical what people think of an office where you walk into a lobby. It's more like it's a garden style, right? So what are the positives of a garden-style office building? Well, you're surrounded by nature. You walk in, there are beautiful gardens. You have picnic tables outside. You have views galore from the second floor that are
plenty of light.
Right, plenty of light. There's not obstructions. Every single office has light because of how it's set up around the garden quad. But
easy to get in and out to your office,
Exactly.
It has a different feel.
And I don't know about you, but when I go show that place, immediately it's not like, okay, I'm still in the rush where I'm walking in the door and trying. It's like it calms you down because I get to walk through a garden, right? I get to see people sitting outside and eating, and it brings in that sense of community.
It's funny because I was getting a new phone, and when I put in the order, I messed up because, we're very close to Dayland Mall, so I was going to pick it up in Dayland Mall. But instead of Dayland Mall, I put the Falls, and I didn't change it. And so now I have to go pick it up in the Falls. Well, I go on, I'm like, oh man, I could have been 2 minutes away from the office. Now I got to drive so I go to drive to the Falls. I get down, and I parked in a place where I have to go for quite a walk to where the store is, and I'm parking there, and I realize, oh man, I parked in the wrong place. If I would have parked the other place, I would have been right there. But as I'm walking through it, and for those of you who don't know the Falls, it's beautiful.
It's an open air mall.
It's an open air mall, and you have these beautiful, basically like water brooks that are all around, and you see the rocks and the foliage, and it was a beautiful day. And then, by the time I got to the store, I was like, man, this is really a beautiful place. This is such a nice walk. And it just gives you a different experience. It really is. And I find that the term experiential for retail has been used a lot. And, and they're talking about what experiential experiences, stores that provide that, retail that provides that, restaurants and
axe throwing.
Axe throwing or
the murder rooms,
exactly.
Rooms.
That's right. Escape rooms, things like that. But there's also something about the actual design of the mall giving you an experience. And that's, I think, what the Falls does.
Correct.
That there is an experience even before, even if you never step into a store, just walking around, it's quite a beautiful experience. And, that's what good design does. It's nice to see that. And so that's what I was thinking about when you were mentioning that. Yeah, absolutely.
Two different experiences. Dayland Mall is a big, modern, enclosed mall, right?
Well, but they've also
totally
made it very
different.
easy. They brought the mall to the outside. You could see it. They
have outdoor eating.
Outdoor eating. They've done a lot of stuff to really entice you to come in. And to have that experience. So
correct. So all about the community and the positive experience. See, you could say negative things about both, but they're actually both positive in their own way.
Well, I wonder, Jennifer, because you recently got an electric vehicle, you've never had one before, and I know you had, your reservations and whatever, but how has that been, right? Because you probably had a little bit of a grumble idea of it, and then now that you're driving it, how has that experience been for you?
I think overall it's positive. Still things that I'm not used to, like the dashboard is literally a computer screen. So I'm like, okay, where are the lights and which icon is lights? And then you touch it and a whole drop-down menu comes down. So that's overwhelming, and I'm still constantly looking for keys and trying to figure out how to turn my car off and unlock it, just because it's, come on, I'm older. I've been driving a regular car, but for people who it's their first experience, I think they made it super easy, and no grumbles.
No grumbles.
No grumbles. Lots of potholes in Miami, but no grumbles.
Hey, they're fixing those potholes.
They are. But no, I did think, all of the issues that are going on in Miami, from our wildlife to our weather to everything. And right now people are complaining about the traffic, and I had a dinner. Thank you for inviting me to that. That was with an innovative company who was here to present to Miami-Dade County's transportation authority as a solution. So a lot of these problems, if you don't grumble about them and instead try to find solutions to help alleviate, then you're a much better resident, and you're going to be a much happier person.
Absolutely.
So that's all I have.
I love it.
Dear Miami.
Dear Miami.
I love you.
There you go. Dear Street. That's awesome. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us on another episode of Between Two Chairs. For Jennifer and I, we really appreciate your patronage to take a look at, listen to our podcast anywhere you like to listen to the podcast. And also, please remember we have our YouTube channel and especially the videos for our wonderful interviews. We have a great couple of interviews that we're going to upload shortly that I think you're really, really going to enjoy. All right, guys. Say bye, Jennifer.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.